So, in this lecture, we are going to discuss the neoclassical and modern approaches of management under the subject of principles of management. So, as far as the neoclassical theory is concerned, neoclassical theory is built on the base of classical theory, wherein classical theory concentrated on job content and management of physical resources, whereas neoclassical theory gave greater emphasis to individual and group relationships in the workplace. The classical writers, including Weber, Taylor, and Fayol, neglected the human relations aspect completely. The neoclassicists focused on the human aspect of the industry. They modified the classical theory by emphasizing the fact that organization is a social system and the human factor is the most important element within it. The neoclassical theory pointed out the role of psychology and sociology in the understanding of individual and group behavior in an organization. The propositions of neoclassical writers is based on the human relation studies which were conducted by Elton Mayo and his team of researchers. They conducted some experiments known as Hawthorne experiments and investigated informal groups, informal relationships, patterns of communication, and patterns of informal leadership. They made special emphasis on the group dynamics. The human relations approach revealed the importance of psychosocial factors for determining the productivity and satisfaction of the workers. It was instrumental in creating a new image of the man and the workplace. The neoclassical or human relations approach put stress on interpersonal relationships or relationships between two people and members of a team at the workplace. The human relationists argued that achievement of organizational objectives is impossible without the willing cooperation of people, and such cooperation cannot be secured by issuing orders and instructions. It has to come voluntarily from the people. It has to be consciously achieved. Neoclassical approach always supported and spoke for the people-oriented organization, wherein a business organization is considered to be a social system. Now, as far as the major contribution of the neoclassical and human relational approach is concerned, or the contribution of George Elton Mayo, along with his group or team of researchers from Harvard University, is concerned, is the Hawthorne experiments, which brought out that the productivity of employees is not the function of only physical conditions of work and money wages which are paid to them. Productivity of workers depends heavily upon the satisfaction of the employees in their work situation. Elton Mayo's idea was that logical factors were far less important and emotional factors at work played a very important role in enhancing the productivity of the employees. Further, all the human factors influencing employee behavior the most powerful being workers' participation at work and in his social or informal groups, how they interact with each other, the kind of dynamics that occur between them. So Mayo and his team of researchers concluded that work arrangements which are done in the workplace should not be only for meeting the objective of production, but satisfying the employees' desire to communicate, to relate with each other. Social satisfaction at workplace matters the most. These Hawthorne experiments consisted of 4 parts. These parts have been briefly described below: the illumination experiment, relay assembly room experiment, mass interview program, bank wiring observation room experiment. These Hawthorne studies were basically conducted in 1927 at the Harvard Business School, wherein a team of researchers went to study the Hawthorne works of Western Electric Company. The experiment lasted up to 1932. If we talk of the illumination experiment, this experiment was conducted to establish relationship between output and illumination. When the intensity of light was increased, the output also increased. The output showed an upward trend even when the illumination was gradually brought down to the normal level. Therefore, it was concluded that there is no consistent relationship between output of workers and illumination in the factory. There must be some other factor which affected productivity. Second, relay assembly room experiment. This relay assembly room experiment was conducted on a small work group, small homogeneous work group of 6 girls. This experiment aimed at knowing not only the impact of illumination on production, but also other factors like length of work day, rest intervals and the hours of rest, and other physical conditions. It also wanted to understand that how a friendly and informal supervision, free time given to the group members for social interaction is going to affect their productivity and morale at work. These girls were allowed to be friendly to each other and were asked to work in a very informal atmosphere under the supervision of a superior. Productivity and morale was seen to be increasing considerably during this period of experiment. Productivity went on increasing and stabilized at high level even when all the improvements were taken away. The researchers therefore concluded that socio-psychological factors such as feeling of being important, recognition, attention, participation were the key for higher productivity. Next is the mass interview program. The researchers interviewed a large number of workers with regard to opinions on work, their working conditions, supervision. They wanted to know, they wanted to make a systematic study regarding the employees' attitude, which would reveal the meaning of work situation, what the meaning that work situation has for them. Researchers interviewed a large number of workers and they tried to ask them specific questions by adopting a direct approach, whereby the interviewers asked questions considered important by managers. The interviewees were asked questions considered very important by managers and researchers. The researchers observed that the replies of the workmen were not so straight, they were more guarded. Therefore, this approach was replaced by an indirect technique where the interviewer simply listened to what workmen had to say about their work situation. The findings confirmed the importance of social factors at work and how the gratification of these factors is important. Last but not the least, it is the bank wiring observation room experiment. It was conducted with a view to develop a new method of observation and obtaining more exact information about social groups within a company and also finding out the causes which restrict the output. This experiment was conducted by Roethlisberger and Dixon with a view to understand that how a group of workers under under certain normal conditions would behave. This group comprised of 14 workers. Af- After the experiment, the production records of this group were compared with their earlier production records. It was observed that the group evolved its own production norms for each individual worker, which was made lower than those set by the management. Because of this, workers would produce only that much, thereby defeating the incentive system. Those workers who tried to produce more than the group norms were isolated, harassed, or punished by the group so that they conform to the norms that have been set by the group together. Non-conformity to the rules was not tolerated by the group members. The findings of this particular experiment included that each individual was restricting the output. The group had its own unofficial standards of performance. Individual output remained fairly consistent over a period of time. Informal groups play an important role in the working of an organization. The major contributions of the Hawthorne experiments were that a business organization is a social system and not just a techno-economic system. Economic incentives are not the only method to motivate people. Management must learn to develop cooperative attitude and not merely keep commanding the employees. This is one of the most important findings. Participation at work is an essential instrument in the human relations movement. Group dynamics play a very important role in any business organization. The major elements of behavioral theory or human relational approach included the individual. The neoclassical theory emphasized that individual differences must be recognized. Every individual is unique in terms of his own feelings, emotions, perception, and attitude. Each person is unique. He brings to the job situation certain attitudes, beliefs, and ways of life as well as skills. He has certain meaning of his job, his supervision, working conditions, etc. all affect him. And he has his own interpretation of his job, his supervision, and the conditions in which he works. What he feels from inside is very important in shaping his reality at work and in determining his productivity and efficiency at work. The human relations at work determine the rise and fall of productivity. Therefore, the human relationists advocated that motivation should be one of the major tools in the hands of a manager. And this motivation should be based upon the financial incentives, the individual differences, how to deal with each employee, After understanding what are his feelings and emotions, his perception, what is his attitude, what is his behavior at work, and of course the social factors such as encouraging social interactions at work. Second was work group. The work group is the center focus of human relations approach. It plays a very important role in determining the attitude and performance of individual workers. Hawthorne studies showed that the informal groups exert a lot of influence over the behavior patterns of the workers over a sustained period of time. They get most affected by the conformity to the norms, to the rules that the group sets, or by the leader of the group. Last but not the least, the other element of human relations approach is participative management. The emergence of participative management is inevitable when emphasis is laid on individual and work groups. Allowing labor to participate in decision making primarily to increase productivity was a new form of supervision. Management now welcomes worker participation in planning job contents and job operations. Neoclassical theory focuses its attention on workers. It also says that the layout of the plant, the machinery, the tools and equipments, etc., must all come after priority has been given or focus has been laid on the employees' convenience or making employees comfortable at the workplace, arranging for the facilities that provide comfort to the workers at the workplace. In this way, the neoclassical approach tried to satisfy the security and safety needs of the workers as well as social needs of the workers. Certain limitations of human relational approach was that the study overemphasized psychological aspects. There are other aspects of work, such as economic aspects, focus on work, the task which has been assigned to a worker, also is an important part of his job. How he carries out the job, what are his technical skills, what is his technical know how. So, the human relational approach completely focused on the social aspects of the job, psychological aspects, without giving any emphasis to the technical aspects of job, which are equally important. It does not really talk about upskilling the employees. It does not really talk about the knowledge, the conceptual knowledge, the technical knowledge that the workers need to bring forth to do their job effectively and efficiently, because that is something which is the first thing to accomplish any kind of job objective or work related objective. These conclusions are based on clinical insight rather than being based on scientific evidence. The human relationists saw only the human variables as critical and ignored all the other variables. It overemphasized on the group relationships, group decision making. But in practice, in reality, groups can be one of the causes of a lot of problems, and collective decision making may not always be possible. Groups create with intra-group conflict, that is within group conflict, and there can be conflicts between the groups that exist in the organization. Other than this, the human relational approach undermines the role of economic incentives in motivation and gives excessive stress on the socio-psychological factors and non-financial incentives. In this scenario, if the wages are too low, the employees will feel dissatisfied. Even if they are having interpersonal relations, good interpersonal relationships at work, they enjoy good informal supervision, friendly supervision at work. But if their wages are low, then in that case, the general sentiment of the workers would be that they want to leave the job. Their morale would be very low. Next, we come to the modern theory. The modern approach represents latest developments which took place after 1950s. This approach can be studied in the four phases: quantitative approach, system approach, contingency approach, attributes of excellence. When we talk about the quantitative approach, this approach is also called as the mathematical operations research or management science approach. The main feature of the quantitative management thought is the use of mixed teams of scientists from several disciplines. The main assumptions of the quantitative approach include that management is essentially decision making, and an organization is a decision making unit. The decisions that are taken by the top management, the middle level managers, the lower level managers are going to affect the quality of the work, the quantity of the work, and whether or not the organizational goals and objectives will be achieved. Organizational efficiency depends upon the quality of managerial decisions. Any problem that the manager faces needs to be represented in a mathematical form, in a quantitative form, so as to make it very objective. Development of decision-making models may require the skills of many disciplines such as engineering, maths, economics, cost accountancy, so on and so forth. The quantitative approach to management basically is having its base, its roots in scientific management movement. Since Frederick W. Taylor also advocated a logical sequence of problem formulation, fact finding, scientific selection of workers, standardization, work study methods under his scientific approach. The quantitative approach to management aimed at achieving high degree of precision, perfection by encouraging the use of statistics, simulation, queuing theory, game theory, etc. It also implied the use of computer-aided technology in various fields like production, finance, cost, transportation, storage, etc. The next approach we discuss here is the systems approach. In 1960s, a new approach to management appeared which attempted to unify the earlier schools of thought. This approach was commonly known as the systems approach. The system approach was based on the fact that an organization is a system and its components are interrelated and interdependent. Each system may comprise several subsystems, and in turn, each subsystem may further be composed of more subsystems. An organization as a system, according to this approach, has various characteristics. That is, a system is goal-oriented. A system consists of several subsystems which are interdependent and interrelated. A system is engaged in processing or transformation of inputs into outputs. A system has a boundary which separates it from other systems. This approach also advocated the open system concept, wherein a closed system is self-sufficient and does not recognize external environment, does not interact with external environment. Physical and mechanical systems are closed systems. A closed system concentrates only on the internal relationships, interdependencies, interactions among the subsystems only. On the other hand, an open system actively interfaces with the external environment. It can respond to the changes in the environment through the feedback mechanism. That is why modern authors consider organization as an open system. According to this approach, a system can be broadly classified into four categories: physical system, mechanical system, biological system, and social system. With this, we basically come to the end of this lecture.